Hi, and happy holidays. Welcome to ConTinual. I'm going to be your host this evening, Jim Nettles, and we're going to be talking about holidays and science fiction and fantasy. We're going to be looking at some of our own favorite holidays, and we're going to be talking about those things that influence us in fiction and the things that we've had fun with. But before we dive in and get started, I'm going to have my panelists go around and introduce themselves, and I want them to tell us what their favorite holiday is. So to get started, we're going to go with Lola.
My name's Lola Lariscy, Lariscy, and I'm a science fiction writer and podcaster, doggy and cat owner, or no, they own me. So actually I belong to 2 dogs and a cat. My favorite holiday is Halloween because it's my birthday. I'm going to be the big 5-0. And to celebrate, I bought myself some witch and spellcasting books from Humble Bundle. And I'm going to go to Woody's barbecue because it's right around the corner and I don't really want to go far. So, and it's a cool holiday. Who doesn't love Halloween?
And a happy birthday.
Thank you.
All right, Darin.
Hello, Darin Kennedy. I write contemporary fantasy and paranormal thrillers, and I may or may not have written a Christmas book myself. And we're going to be talking about holidays tonight. And I'll start thinking about my favorite fake holidays.
Jenny?
Hi, I'm Gini Koch. I write the Alien Catherine Kitty Cat series for dog books. I write under a wide variety of pen names and in all lengths and genres. And my favorite holiday is Thanksgiving because that's the day my grandmother died, and I loved her very much. But she was a celebrate the life, don't mourn the death person. So every Thanksgiving, I like to do a very big feast in her honor.
Nancy?
I'm Nancy Northcott. I write historical fantasy, several different types of romance, and with Jeannie Adams, science fiction mystery adventure on Outcast Station. And my favorite holiday is Christmas, but it's only the part of Christmas that starts in December. I'm not interested in having Christmas in November. I realize that's popular on many fronts, and that's fine if other people want to do that. But for me, Christmas starts in December, and I love the decorations. And I love the sort of festive feeling that is so often in the air. Not crazy about the stress that sometimes comes through with people, but by and large, it's an upbeat holiday with lots of pretty decorations and shiny stuff. That's why I got shiny stuff behind me tonight for Christmas, and so I'll take Christmas.
And I too will go with Halloween because, well, why not? I mean, it's got all the best features of all the good holidays, including it's the night the veil is thinnest and you get to visit all the old friends that you thought you'd gotten rid of. So anyway, tonight, though, we're talking about fictional holidays from fiction and whatnot. And I want to talk a little bit about ones that might have been really fun and influential for you. But before we get too far down this, I'm going to go with the one that got me in trouble last year. And this is one that is a personal favorite that I feel sure everyone here remembers extraordinarily well. And this is, of course, Life Day from Star Wars and sitting through the grand holiday special. So before we start going too far down the path, last year for Life Day, because my wife did not believe me that there had been a Star Wars holiday special back in the 70s that has since been disavowed, I made her watch it. And she is now thoroughly traumatized. So I know everyone here has seen the holiday special, and I believe all.
I have not.
No. Oh.
I have avoided it like the plague. Nothing can make me watch it.
So I think we're going to have to come up with that. So, Darin, what is your fond memory of the Life Day holiday special?
Well, all those memes where you see that 3 of the Golden Girls have already passed, and now Rose, Betty White, is the only one remaining, and the other 3 are the Force ghosts in the background. If you go through the Star Wars Life Day and find out that B. Arthur actually is canon Star Wars totally is, because she's the bartender, then I think that Rose Nyland as Jedi and the three Golden Girls in the backdrop as Jedi ghosts, totally legit canon Star Wars. Come at me about it.
I'd watch that.
Wait, now wouldn't Estelle Getty be, what are the little creatures that are in brown robes? And they're like,
Jawas.
Jawas.
Yeah, wouldn't she be a Jawa?
No, that's Yoda's mom.
Oh, all right. I can get it.
Sophia's like, remember that time on Dagobah.
Remember to use your force.
But that means B. Arthur's his sister.
I'm really on this canon pathway. I'm
not going to argue it. I see. I'd watch that. I'll never watch the.
I think Blanche dated Palpatine. I think Blanche dated Palpatine, and actually
Blanche dated everybody.
She maybe raised grandma. We don't have proof that's not the case.
That's very true. And being Blanche, she would have dated everyone. So
Nancy, what
anyone you want connected.
Well, I have one thought. Hold on. Palpatine was a front, just like Smoke. It was Rose all along. She was the puppet master. All right, you can go on now.
So, Nancy, what about you and Life Day as one of our favorite Star Wars holidays?
I actually have no memory of Life Day. I remember watching the long ago, now disavowed Star Wars Holiday Special. My only memory of it is secondhand because Mark Hamill disavows it on Twitter every time it comes up. So I really don't remember anything about it. So I got nothing. Sorry.
All I'm going to see everybody is YouTube. Go hit the YouTube. It's worth it. And take alcohol. So as we start making our way around the room to start looking at some of our more favorite holidays from science fiction, fantasy, fiction in general, or even, maybe some of the things that you might have worked into some of your own work. Let's kind of go around and see what your favorites are. So Jenny, I'm going to start with you for that one.
Thank you, because I found one. It's really hard. On fictional, it would be Hogswatch, with the Hogfather coming out from Discworld, and it's very Discworld in itself is the real world but tilted, and Hogswatch is definitely very tilted. But I like the idea of the Hogfather, even though I think he's kind of creepy. All of the Discworld holidays are actually kind of creepy because they kind of turn. Otherwise, we can be pointing to very easily Nightmare Before Christmas, which I love that. That works for both Halloween and Christmas. So I like that one a lot. So those would be my favorites of what I didn't create. I don't think I've created a lot of holidays. I use the existing holidays, and my characters either do or do not participate in them.
So looking at that, what are the influences that most pull to you about, for the holidays? Because again, like you say, in Discworld, it very much is tilting to the side, and it's a Christmas story. We know that. But what are really the elements that Terry Pratchett pulled in that really pull you in for?
The Hogfather isn't necessarily jolly, but what he's leaving is like sausages and things like that, which are actually very useful because you can eat them. And just the general idea that, like the Tooth Fairy in Discworld, you find like the Cave of Teeth, and it's really, really creepy. So there's a lot of there's like it's not necessarily talked about overtly, but there is a lot of creepiness in most of the holidays as Pratchett shows them, because he's kind of showing you the uglier side of why these holidays are going on. And especially you're talking about, a series that has witches and wizards, and it's even got kind of zombies in there, and werewolves, vampires. It's got all these things. These creatures are just living like they're regular people. And so now you have the supernatural element, which he brings in because of death and Death's granddaughter Susan has, relationships with all the I guess you'd call them, the beings that are even just a little more out there than most of the people living on Discworld. So I like that most of his holidays are not sunny, happy, joyous things, but the fairy that comes and takes your teeth is, are they taking it when it's under your pillow, or are they just wrenching it out of your mouth? So I like the kind of the creepy factor that's in there, and it's subtle in most cases, but not always. Versus like Nightmare Before Christmas, that's just very, very sweet all the way around, even though its messages stay in your lane, and I don't necessarily agree with that. Because that's really the bottom line. Oh, don't do what you're good at. Don't try to do something else because you won't be good at it, which is not necessarily what you want kids having, but it's really, it is sweet. And it is, there's only one real scary bad guy, and that's Oogie Boogie, and everybody else is trying to do the best job they can do. And so I like it for that, because I don't think it's very creepy. I think it's very, very sweet. So maybe it's just a skewed worldview, but that's how I see both of those.
What about you, Lola?
I spent all day thinking about this. I worked. People called me, and I answered phone calls, and I talked. In the back of my mind, I was like, books with holidays, TV with holidays. Okay. And then I was like Googling and stuff. So I was like all pumped up. I was like, I'm ready. I got this. All right. So what comes to mind first is the Pern series. I loved those books growing up and in my 20s. I mean, I still love them. I just haven't read any of them in a long time. But if I think about it, I can put my mind in that mindset, because they were all young adults just starting out. And, they all had some kind of mark against them, something that was holding them back. But of course, they persevered and became the best in their field. Did I mention I'm turning 50 in a few days?
You did. Happy birthday.
Thank you. I have a day job where I have to talk to customers. So yeah, one day I'm going to break through and be what I was meant to be. It's just right around the corner. Anyway, so I love those books for that. And they were always having get-togethers, and what would you call them? Sometimes I don't know if they're really holidays, but they're fairs, because they're a very agrarian society. And so, people would come from around, and they would have traders markets and things like that. And I remember in one of the short stories, The Runner of Pern, I identified with this the most, because in my 20s, I had a lot of get up and go. And I would actually I would walk all over town, just walk everywhere for hours and just explore. And I love doing that. And Runner of Pern is about a girl named Tina, I think her name is, and that's her job. She runs from hold to hold, and she's a messenger. And I remember one time she went to a hold, and they were having a festival. And it just seemed so warm and so exciting. And there are all kinds of vendors there. And all she wanted was a messenger bag. And I could identify that with that, because I was like, messenger bags are cool. If you have a messenger bag, it means you have something to say. You have something to show people. Maybe it's a story. Maybe it's something else. It's just mysteries and secrets inside that messenger bag. So because she got a messenger bag, I got a messenger bag. And I used it for a long time before I finally had to admit that it hurt my shoulder. Even though I had it crossbody like you're supposed to, I was like, Igor. I was like this. And even now, I still have a crick in my neck. And so I was like, so I finally had to admit I have to use a backpack. Even though they're not as cool or mysterious, I have to use a backpack. I don't have a choice. So there's that. And they also have a holiday called Turns In, which is their New Year's, basically, because a turn is a year. So it's the end of the year, and they all have festivals and feasts and stuff. And of course, I want to go to that too. So when I die, whatever heaven is there, I want it to be Pern without the thread. Let me stipulate that right now. Whoever is listening, no thread. Dragons, yes. Thread, no.
What about you, Nancy?
Well, one of my favorite imaginary holiday stories, even though I haven't read it in a long time, I have really, as Darin might say, all the feels for it. And it's Winter Fair Gifts by Lois McMaster Bujold. And I believe it's a short story or a novella that fits into the Miles Vorkosigan series between a couple of the books. And Miles and Ekaterin are being married in this story, and Miles's crew, the Dendari Free Mercenaries, have come to the wedding. And one of those is Sergeant Tara, who is a hybrid being. And there's something poignant about Tara, and I don't want to say what it is because I don't want to spoil it if somebody goes and reads the story. But the story is told from the perspective of one of the youngest armsmen of House Vorkosigan. And when Tara comes to the wedding, her clothes aren't right. So he has to go and help her get clothes. And it's a nice, with the background of these wedding preparations in this ice-covered garden on Barire, it's a nice story about two people connecting around this holiday. And yet there's kind of a sad note running through it. But overall, it's a really happy and upbeat story. And so I think about that when I think of imaginary holidays. That's one of the first that comes to mind. And I'm going to have to go back and read that story because I had kind of forgotten about it till we were getting ready for this panel. And I thought, well, of course, that Winter Fair gifts, it's got everything. And then, of course, all of us who've read Lord of the Rings have heard of Durin's Day, which is when the door to the kingdom under the mountain becomes visible on Durin's Day, or when you say the right thing. So those would be my two for now.
What about you, Darin?
So I don't know if Shirley Jackson's The Lottery counts as an imaginary holiday, but I would say that one is at the very least memorable, as we all read that in middle school or high school, and none of us have ever forgotten that story ever. I think my favorite imaginary holiday is Festivus from Seinfeld.
Yeah. For the rest of us. Yeah.
Festivus for the rest of us. But it's a lot of people remember that, but I always remember there is a whole lot to it. There is the feats of strength. And I just find that his father just waxes so poetic when he comes up with this, because it's all the stuff that matters to him. There are the feats of strength. Then there are the airing of grievances, because man, he likes to complain. He wants to be big and bad, and he likes to complain. So when he creates a holiday, he makes the things that he wants, and I find it fascinating. But kind of like what we were saying about Hogfather, I think we all air our grievances at Christmas anyway. So there's a little bit of the dark side of what already is coming through. And then before I forget, to sort of turn this on its head, one of my favorite things, I had to look it up because I wanted to make sure I said it right, is in one of the Christmas episodes of Doctor Who, they end up on a interstellar version of the Titanic, and they are going to come to Earth at Christmas time. And the guy that's running it is Mr. Copper. And he says, "I shall be taking you to old London town in the country of UK, ruled over by good King Wenceslas. Now human beings worship the great god Santa, a creature with fearsome claws, and his wife Mary. And every Christmas Eve, the people of the UK go to war with the country of Turkey. Then they eat the turkey people for Christmas dinner, the savages." And as you're listening to this guy read this off, David Tennant is like, with each sentence, getting a little bit more gobsmacked until he gets to the end. And he's like, what? And so I think it's funny to hear a writer come up with how other people would like watch our broadcasts or observe us and think about our actual holidays. So those are my thoughts on the subject.
Well, and that kind of goes to where I wanted to hit next, which is, when we look at fiction, when we look at the stories that we tell, and when we look at the holidays that are made up in these stories, they have a lot of influence based on, our world. I mean, because it gives us a way to relate. Holidays are one of those times where it brings friends and family together. It's one of those things that unifies cultures. It's one of those things that gives us meaning and unity as people. And so I think seeing these kinds of things in fiction helps us to relate to those worlds and relate to those characters. And so if I also look, I really like the ones that take it and turn it on its head, much like we were talking about with Discworld and whatnot. I'm a huge fan of Futurama. And so one of the big holidays there that they celebrate is Freedom Day, which is basically do what you want, damn the consequences. It's really this idea of the purge before there was the purge. I really blame Futurama for the purge. But if we look also at Futurama and their take on Christmas and Christmas holidays, it's Xmas, where now robotic Santa, and we have robotic Kwanzaa and all the kind of their take on how holidays shift and change over time. When we look at some of these stories and we look at how we celebrate holidays and what they mean to us, are there any of these stories, any of these holidays that really kind of help bring and make holidays more meaningful to you? Or things that you'd like to take and play with in your own stories and fiction that you're going to take one of our holidays and craft it and take and turn it and twist it to give meaning into your worlds? So Lola, I see you looking. So we're going to start with you first.
So I made a list of books and TV shows, but I didn't think about themes. So, all right, I'm going to say right now, things that are meaningful. We'll say something that moved me. There was a Christmas episode from the X-Files, the TV show. And it was called How the Ghost Stole Christmas. And it was a really sweet ghost story. And I love ghost stories, especially with two old people who are married and so cute and sweet. It was Ed Asner and Lily Tomlin, and they haunted the house they had lived in. And they just had such a lovely relationship, and you could tell they loved each other. And it was so cute. And of course, Scully didn't see them. I don't remember if Mulder saw them. I don't think anyone saw them. So we were watching their story. It was just this cute little ghost story that could have been in any show. It didn't even have to be in the X-Files. It was a break from the usual, heightened drama of the X-Files to just be a sweet little, could have been a paranormal Hallmark show. And so that makes me feel good. And it kind of makes me, dogs, kind of makes me, think, I want to live in a house like that and grow old with somebody, even if we're ghosts. It sounds cool.
What about you, Nancy?
Well, I used the solstice in one of my Light Mages Christmas stories. That series I'm re-releasing it next year. It's reverted to me, so I'm working on it to re-release it. But I wanted something that would be a big celebration for them that would not be a big celebration for me. But it ties in because they are literally called the Light Mages, and their motto is Servire Luci, to serve the light. And so since the solstice is the day when the days start getting longer after that, and the return of the light, I used it for that. And I sort of think about sometimes how in the winter everything is dark and all our moods are dark because, we've all got seasonal affective disorder or whatever. But then along comes the solstice and the days start getting longer. And before you know it, spring is on the way. And it's almost like a dial that turns a mood when the solstice happens. And so I kind of like to think about it for that.
What about you, Darin?
You restate the question because I want to make sure I'm getting it.
I love that stall. Go for it.
Keep stalling. So, in terms of our fictional holidays, is there something, or even since you wrote about A Christmas Carol and you have the Carol story, what are kind of the real elements of holidays and story that I think speak to you and call to you and create part of that relationship for characters and for story and for your world?
The reason I actually asked you to repeat the question is because when you asked it the first time, I had a thought about it and then I had forgotten what it was. And I knew if you said it again, I would get it. I think Charles Dickens is credited a lot with saving Christmas as the big deal that it is. I think between that and The Night Before Christmas, those two stories, or story and poem, I guess, would be, because Christmas was kind of a little bit of a humbug, I think, at that time in England, if I understand right. And by having this huge thing where it becomes such a big deal and such a redemptive story, I think that is probably one of the bigger things that's actually made our Christmas become what it has become today. Especially when you're taking there's a lot of elements from Christmas that predate Christianity. There's a lot of elements that incorporate Christianity, but to have it all sort of tied together with that story being a big redemptive arc, I think that sort of pulls elements of both to make it pretty cool. And like Jim said, I did incorporate a lot of that into a young adult version of A Christmas Carol, which I wrote a few years back and became available last year.
What about you, Jenny?
Well, I'm a gigantic Dickens fangirl. So yes, The Man Who Invented Christmas. Absolutely. I researched to make sure it was as factual as it seems, and it actually is. The movie is extremely factual, but it's also really, really good. Dickens, Christmas is an extremely minor holiday at the time. It was no big deal. And A Christmas Carol actually made that holiday a big deal. He also essentially created charitable giving. He's also the reason we all get royalties. He self-published A Christmas Carol. I mean, the man was a rock star in his day, and we owe him a tremendous amount. Plus, in that movie, it's the first real depiction of what it's like to be an author that I've ever seen. You know, usually they show us typing and throw paper away. They don't do that here. It is really accurate. And you can see how, for us, how the characters are alive and talking to us. And in some ways, they're more real to us than our family. And how, you know, you've been thinking and trying to figure it out all day. And you finally sit down and then knock, knock, knock. Someone's annoying you and breaking your thought, and how that works. So I cannot recommend that movie highly enough. It is fabulous, and it's a great movie on top of everything else. So sorry, I just had to do a big plug for The Man Who Invented Christmas, because it's epically good. In terms of incorporating this stuff in my own writing, I've been thinking while everybody else is talking, it's like, I don't use holidays very much. The only in the Alien series, they're definitely, because it's going through and to set scenes so you know where you are in time. Yes, holidays are involved in Alien Proliferation, which is book 4 in the series. That's where my characters, their first child is on Christmas, and it's a big deal. Not so much that she's born on Christmas, but that all the events that are happening on Christmas Day. And it makes some things more challenging and some things a little bit easier for the characters, usually more challenging. And my aliens they celebrate Arrival Day as a big deal when they first arrived on Earth. But other than hitting that, I don't hit the holidays much. Obviously, I have to hit Christmas because that's a birthday for a major character. But I don't really do it. I'm thinking, gosh, I really don't use holidays at all. I probably do, and I've probably forgotten it. You know, there's a lot of titles back behind me, but I don't use them that much, and I don't really create my own holidays all that frequent. I mean, Arrival Day was it finally dawned on me that there's no way these ACs are just walking in and going to be celebrating what everybody else is celebrating. They are going to, however, celebrate the day they got to their new planet and got accepted and allowed to live there. That they are going to celebrate. But I mean, it's exchanging of small gifts, and the only reason you know about it is that that gift exchange has ramification within the greater story. So I am really currently a holiday avoider when it comes to writing. So you've identified a gap. So I guess I'll have to get on the stick on that one.
So when you look at holidays in fiction, for you. If you were sitting there and thinking, now looking at some of your world, some of your stories, when you look at the elements of a holiday, and you're trying to craft something, and kind of going back to this idea of, arrival day, that's something that would be meaningful to people and be a unifying date that says, this is a new date. This is when something was created and started and has importance. But when we look at fiction, whether it's your own stuff, whether it's stuff you watch on TV, we've already brought up things like The Nightmare Before Christmas and the elements it brings of Halloween and Christmas, and tying the two together, and the fact that's really running the first half of winter. That's the dying part of winter. And are there any of these things that have strong meaning for you that have actually given you more meaning for the holidays that they're around? So if you're looking at, again, something like that, is there something that in these specials that may be its own reflection or a mirror, that is something you've read, something you've seen, something you've watched, something you've even written, that really has meaning for you and makes you reconsider how you look at the real holiday that it may be based off of? So Nancy, I'm going to throw that one to you.
Oh, thank you.
Yay, someone else is taking that one first.
Thinking about that, and not really so much. I'm kind of set in my ways when it comes to holidays, and not what we might call highly flexible about that. I enjoy playing with them. I've written 2 books that have Thanksgiving in them, but they didn't really affect my view of Thanksgiving at all.
Well, then conversely, how did your view of those particular holidays influence the story you told then?
This was a paranormal romance. It's part of the series I'm getting ready to reissue.
I hate it when the turkey stands up and dances.
No, it's not that kind of paranormal romance. The hero invites the heroine. They're archaeologists. They're on an excavation site. And so his parents, who are famous archaeologists, come down to have Thanksgiving with them. And he does the polite thing and invites her to join his parents and a couple of their friends locally. We're all having Thanksgiving, and everybody has a lovely dinner and everything is fine. But things that happen later make him believe she played him to get access to his parents. And that's a sore spot for him. So I use Thanksgiving to mix up the conflict between the hero and the heroine. And honestly, I think I was raised to look at Thanksgiving and Christmas as this is the time we all step into a Norman Rockwell painting. And I love Norman Rockwell's paintings, but I don't think most of our lives are quite as sunny as a Norman Rockwell holiday painting. And I think holidays have a way of bringing out conflict in people. I saw a special on MSNBC before Thanksgiving one year because, so many more people travel for Thanksgiving than for Christmas. And they were talking about the family stresses of Thanksgiving. And I thought, I've had Thanksgivings that had that. And so this really has very little to do with what you asked. It's just my thoughts on Thanksgiving and the holiday. So I'm going to let somebody else have a turn now.
Well, that's kind of the way holiday conversations go, right? So Darin, you're up next.
So I think we just did a panel earlier this evening on A Christmas Carol, and as I wrote my own version of that one is one that really sticks in my mind. And I think when Christmas rolls around, I think it does bring out the better side of a lot of us. It brings out sometimes the worst side of all of us. And I think in any particular Christmas season, it can do both. You're going to see everybody. You're going to eat lots of your favorite foods and see, people you don't see all that often. But also, You're going to see people that you don't see that often, that you may not always agree with every single thing about. And you're going to go shopping for those people and be in the mall with 400,000 other people. And that can necessarily bring out sides of yourself that you may not like or really wish the world would see. And I think when you have something like A Christmas Carol or the Grinch, you know, I think that you can look at that and say, that is sort of a little bit of an object lesson when the holiday rolls around, to let your better side show, or let your better side shine. And when you start to feel Grinchy or Scroogey, that there's a hooded cloaked figure in the darkness that's going to get you if you don't if you don't simmer down. That's my answer.
Jenny?
I want to ask the stalling question again. What was actually? I've actually been really paying attention to what everybody else was saying, and I forgot what your question was that started what everybody else was saying.
I'm supposed to remember the question I asked? Oh, wait.
You are now, or I'm going to just answer something else randomly.
No, I mean, just sort of looking. When we look at holidays in fiction, we look at the stories we tell. You know, are there any of the stories that we've seen or represented in fiction or stuff you've written that really influences or changes the way you look at holidays or makes them more meaningful to you? Or is there something you've done that ties to a holiday that, you know, some part of you made your way into the story to make you, look at it a little differently?
Gotcha. Okay. An only child, and I grew up in a very small family. So all the holiday depictions of big families were something that just was like, I was always on the outside looking in on that. And then I married into a very big family. Yeah. And the reality is that there's, it's bigger, the more people, the more chaotic. And but it's I like the chaos at Thanksgiving, and I hate it at Christmas. I don't like the way I grew up. One person had a present and you unwrapped it and you showed it to everybody and you thanked the person who gave it to you, and then the next person, not the mad, here's 50,000 presents, everybody open them at once because no one wants to wait. But the big bustle of Thanksgiving finally made making a frickin' turkey worthwhile. So I love doing Thanksgiving. And, like I said before, my grandmother, who I adored, did die on Thanksgiving. And like I said, so every Thanksgiving is something that I wanted to be big and fun and happy. And I want my place to be a place that people can come where no one is going to ask them why they aren't married yet. No one is going to, they don't have to be afraid that, someone will find out that they are gay or trans or whatever, because nobody is going to care in a negative way in my place, because I don't invite those people that would. And so I want to be the place people can come when they don't, when it's like, I'm going to make a turkey for myself or for two of us or three of us, and it's just not enough. I want people able to come to me. So 2020 sucked. But anyway, that was hard. But how it affected me in writing, all I can say is that very clearly, as we identified in the last question, I don't really write about holidays. The only reason Christmas has worked in is because of literally it is a that matters, so I have to talk about it. I'm never writing the Christmas stuff to be deeply meaningful. There's a very meaningful scene at the end of Alien Proliferation where they're going to the National Christmas Tree on the last night it's open. So they're there at New Year's Eve. That's what they're doing. And that's actually very meaningful to the story and to the characters. But overall, avoidance, I think, is what I've gotten, is like, I don't want to write about it. I don't want to write about either people fighting over how the stuffing came out, or, the deep meaningfulness or the gooey centers of most holidays. So apparently I just flee them as fast as I can. From a writing standpoint, I like holidays in real life.
Is there anybody else's depiction though that really touched you?
I really like the Psych Christmas episodes. I'm not gonna lie. And most, I would say probably most of the ones that I really like would not fall, other than Psych, I swear to you, falls under a fandom. They aren't anything in science fiction or fantasy that works for me, other than, like I said, I love Pratchett stuff, but I didn't necessarily want to celebrate, Hogswatch. I enjoy reading about it, but I don't necessarily want to celebrate those holidays. I think of the scene of Happy Christmas with the first Harry Potter movie, and then I think like we barely ever talk about Christmas again after the first book. So I liked that, but it didn't make me gooey. That's honestly the only one I can think of. So obviously it did something, but no, they don't really. I mean, I like them. I'll tear up at the right place. I'll be moved at the right place, and then it's gone. So I guess I'm just not sentimental in that way. So this is suddenly turning into psychoanalysis, and I'd like somebody else to answer the question now.
All right, Lola, it is your time to sit on the couch. And
First of all, me too, only child. And everyone opened their own present and he went, ooh, and thank you.
Exactly.
But then when I go to Christmas with other people, they're like, and I got mad. Like last year or the year before, I got mad, and I was like, you're supposed to look at look at the person and go, ooh and and what the heck is going on here? So it kind of takes the fun out of it, because you want to see, do they like the perfume I got them, or was that a good gift? You want to know. So yeah, it sucks. Big families suck. Only children all the way.
Rules.
Exactly. So my answer is, all right. So I always heard that a lot of the Christian holidays were kind of manipulated to mimic pagan holidays to kind of get people on board. Like, hey, I know you like Samhain. Let's do this other thing. I know you like Yule. Well, hey, how about Christmas? It's kind of, we have green stuff and fires. Let's do this thing. So a book I read probably 20-something years ago that I haven't read since, so my memory is a little foggy, is American Gods by Neil Gaiman. Yeah, and one of the things I loved that he did, he put it so in perspective, because every deity that was ever worshipped came alive because somebody worshipped them. It didn't matter if they were copies of the same. For instance, you had Black Jesus. You had Mexican Jesus. So every iteration of a deity came to life. So it wasn't just a holiday for Jesus or God, it was a Mexican holiday for Mexican Jesus. And so it really made me realize just how much of it is influenced by people. Now, I know we're not going to get into discussion about religion and everything. We don't have all night. I don't have my wine with me. So we can't do that. And some of us have to work. So, but I'll just say it really opened my eyes to just how much might be culturally fixated as far as holidays go. For instance, you have Easter. Easter's a person because she became a person because people observed it so much that it came to life. And so I love that not only holidays may be paranormal, may be divine, they may be, but they're also part of our own culture and our own histories, and we should embrace that part of it. You do you, Black Jesus, Mexican Jesus, you go on all out, do it.
Well, and for me, one of the ones that I remember really well was from Babylon 5. They're on the station, you have all these peoples, you have all these cultures, but miraculously, they all sort of celebrate the same day where the veil gets thin. It's their Halloween sort of celebration, their Samhain. And that episode I thought was beautifully done, even with Penn and Teller aside. But that episode was very much about having people that have crossed over come back, and people being able to look at and address, things that they hadn't dealt with people that had passed on, and able to see things from all these different cultures, but the fact that still created that community of different peoples, different cultures, with still that idea of loss and grief and wanting to reconnect. And that was a story that the way they did it, I thought was done really well in their universe, that let you see that unification between, no matter how diverse the cultures, no matter how the conflicts were going and working, no matter what else was going. It was an interesting way of seeing how so many different people and cultures dealt with the same sort of a situation. And that for me is still one of my favorites. So as we're coming up here and starting to get towards wrapping up, I kind of want to hit on, is there a holiday, whether you've played with it or not, is there something, after we've been going through all of this in the psychoanalysis of tonight, that now you're feeling called to tell a story that involves that holiday and the drama and the conflict it gets to create?
Yes.
All right, Jenny, you win. You go first.
In what you were talking about, it reminded me that Coco does a wonderful job of doing the Day of the Dead. And that is one of the holidays that I grew up in a highly Hispanic area, so it was celebrated, but wasn't anything my family joined in. But I really like the whole idea behind it. So that, and I like the imagery. I really like everything about Day of the Dead, and I've never ever gotten to celebrate it because I am not Hispanic and I don't have any cultural right to do so, but it is something that I would like to do personally and wouldn't mind working into a story, because I think that I actually can work into a variety of stories where it would be interesting and appropriate. So Day of the Dead for me.
Lola?
And thank you, Jim.
I want to learn more about Passover, the Jewish Passover, like what it is and when. I kind of know when it is, but I know I'm just being funny. But it's like one of those things. I know it's around Christmas, right? It's usually no. Which is the one that's 8 days? Which is the one that's 8 days? Hanukkah. I meant to say Hanukkah. I'm sorry.
Hanukkah's around Christmas.
In my defense, I meant to say Hanukkah, but it came out wrong. So I meant Hanukkah. And I know it's 8 days, and I know it's in December. Sometimes it falls around Christmas, sometimes it doesn't. And, I would love to write a story involving that, but then there's the problem of, well, if I get it wrong, I'll never live that down. I have to be very careful. And it's like, I want to learn about it so that I can incorporate,
We'll talk.
Here's good news. We actually have a show coming up. We've already taped it. Now I'm just showing how old I am. We've already recorded it. That's all about Hanukkah. So you can learn from.
And see, I would love to incorporate that maybe with a character. I don't think I would try to do a whole book or story about, the Jewish tradition, because I would screw it up and I would look so much like a Gentile that I would be just glowing with Gentileness, gentility, I don't know. So, but maybe just incorporate a character and put something in there. I would like to do that.
Nancy?
Well, actually, I've just been thinking about that while we've been sitting here. And I've never actually written a story with the summer solstice, only the winter solstice. Because I've done Christmas. I don't want to do Easter because it's just too religious a holiday for me. And I just prefer to stay away from that kind of story. But the solstice could be fun. And I was just sitting here trying to think of what other days there are.
I've written a St. Patrick's Day story.
Yeah, and then we did last year's Canham Castle collection was Trick or Treat at Canham Castle, and the stories ended approximately on Bonfire Night or Guy Fawkes Day, which celebrates the failure of Guy Fawkes to blow up the Houses of Parliament with a bunch of gunpowder in the cellar. So we kind of all had fun. But see, now I've done that. So I don't know. So I probably the summer solstice.
Darin?
So I've already written a short story that took place on the winter solstice, and I wrote Carol, which is an entire book revolving around Christmas. I don't know if I've ever done one with Halloween. I think that would be fun. That one tickles my brain as well, but I would have to really have a big epiphany about what that story would be about before I would probably entertain doing a very holiday centric story again, because I've already kind of spent a year of my life doing that.
I've hit on Valentine's Day with a very drunk Cupid, and Mom had to come down and smack him or remind him to do his job. St. Patrick's Day, we won't talk about how green and alcoholic that one was. Not everything I write involves alcohol, believe it or not. I've done Halloween. I've done a number of the other sort of things. But I'm going to throw out there one last little question. Outside of all the rest of these, is there a fandom holiday that's been created that really speaks to you? I mean, obviously, I'm going to take off the table May the 4th, because May the 4th be with you always. So is there a fandom holiday for your series or anything else like that that's been pulled out that really kind of calls, and you have to make sure you recognize it every year? And I can see Nancy going, but it's still for, Free Comic Book Day.
Well, it used to be Free Comic Book Day, May the 4th, but not anymore. I'm drawing a blank.
All right, I've beaten the panelists. I've won now.
Yeah, I've got nothing. I'm thinking, no, I've got, didn't we psychoanalyze this 3 questions back? I've got nothing.
I think so.
Isn't there a May the 6th? What's the 6th one?
May the 6th
one. Yeah, there is. There's a 6th one. It's something like May the 6th.
Yeah.
So that would be mine. Time to reflect on all the evil deeds you've done.
Well, May the 6th crosses 2 days, so, there can only be 2. All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming to hang out this evening and have a little bit of fun about some of our favorite fictional or not so fictional holidays. But before we get out of here, we're going to go back around the room again and let everybody, know where to find you on the social media, stalk you, and of course, come and get some books because it is holiday season and you do need some gifts. So Nancy, I'm going to start with you.
Well, you can find me at nancynorthcott.com. I spend more time than is good for me on Twitter, and on Twitter I'm at Nancy Northcott. My latest release from Falstaff Books was The Steel Rose, which is the second in a historical fantasy trilogy set during the 100 days between Napoleon's escape from Elba and the Battle of Waterloo. I have a Christmas romance, romantic suspense in Christmas at Caneham Castle, and I have Scorpions for Christmas, which is a murder mystery involving scorpioid people who who are not keen on humans but have some resources we need, in Christmas on Outcast Station, and a couple of paranormal romance stories. So you can tell that I'm really into Christmas.
Lola?
My name is Lola Lariscy. I'm a sci-fi writer. I have one book. I'm very slow. It's called Trudy Lim, Spaceship Captain, Earth Detective. It's about a person named Trudy Lim. And I'm going to tell you, she's a spaceship captain and she's an Earth detective. Spoiler, sorry, I gave it away. I'm sorry. And I've been working on a paranormal young adult book for like 8 years now. I don't know. I'm just stuck in my head. But one day I'm on the 3rd draft and it's the hardest because everything's already there. It's just, I keep finding the flaws. And so I get depressed and I stop. So I just need to get in there and do it. I just need to take like a year off from work and do it. So anyways, that'll be out eventually. You can find me everywhere. I'm on just about everything. Lola Lariscy, Lariscy.
Jenny?
Was that Jenny?
Yeah, that was Jenny.
Oh, I'm sorry. I heard it
Jenny.
as Denny. I heard it as Denny, and I'm like, who's Denny? And when
That's
did they
Crane.
join the call?
Wrong one.
Wrong one. You can find me at GiniKoch.com. I'm on Facebook far more than I should be, but all the time. I'm also on Twitter at Gini Koch with no space. I'm on Pinterest. And please remember that books wrap so easily. They are the perfect gift.
And I feel sure you can get signed copies. So inundate Jenny with offers.
Yeah.
She'll send you signed copies.
I will.
And Darin.
So I'm Darin Kennedy. I'm at darinkennedy.com. All of these books are available. King's Crisis will hopefully come out early next year. But for a holiday, I would recommend Carol, which is my young adult version of A Christmas Carol. And be a great holiday read. And you can also get in touch with me for signed copies. I sent a bunch out last Christmas.
And I have had the great pleasure of being your host, Jim Nettles. So all I'm going to say is happy Krampus as I put it on backwards. I am wearing the Krampus shirt. Happy Scotchtoberfest. Well, Willie was really disappointed to find out that that was not a real holiday. You can find me at jamesbnettles.com. You can find me at authoressentials.net. You can, of course, find me here at ConTinual. I do show up on Facebook, the hive of scum and villainy that is Twitter, Instagram, and a few other places as well. So thanks for coming and hanging out with us for a little bit of holiday ridiculousness. And we will see you again next time.